Okay, thanks for joining this session, and I warmly welcome you to this session. And you might already know our topic for today is SDGs in the light of synergies, trade-offs, and inclusive development. And you can already see the screen. Just a few words concerning the session outline. To have a short look on the session design, the thematic framework, then we will follow the presentations, and in the end we will look at some expected outcome. That means we should discuss some highlights, and we should write down some outcomes of this session. So this is just an overview of the countries from where the speakers are. So Mexico, very early in the morning. Hi, it's good to see you. Brazil as well. Then we have participants from Kenya and from India. And as far as I know, Mohammed Khalifa, he's not with us at the moment.
I am here also.
Oh, where? Hello. Yeah.
Sorry, my camera is not working. Hello, everyone.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, but good to hear you. You are in Germany currently, right?
Yes.
Yes. Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from Sudan, but I live in Bonn.
Okay. Welcome, Mohammed. So let's continue. This is the session design. I have already shown this to you last week. We're going to start with Manjuru, then let's go ahead with Juan Carlos, Guyan, Mohammed, and Anand will be giving us the end this presentation. So, yeah, when we speak about SDGs, synergies, trade-off, what is it? You know, the SDGs and the whole world is trying to work on the SDGs and to reach these goals and to use the indicators that will allow to reach these goals, because there we have some instruments at hand in order to work on these different SDGs. And there was recently, 4 years back, there was a publication that was very interesting. And this was about to rank the SDGs according to synergy and according to trade-off. So they looked at all the indicators of these SDGs. They looked at a huge amount of data they collected, and they did some statistical overview and used this data for this statistical overview. And the result was is what you can see here on the right-hand side. I already mentioned you have this column of synergy pairs, and you have a column of trade-off pairs. It means that the combination of these pairs, 11 and 13, for example, or 1 or 6, that have led to some synergy effects, so that the implementation and the work on this to fulfill these SDGs to reach the goals, that led to synergy effects. So that means that here included the combination of the indicators and also the conditions that from the social and political side were quite good, so that all these actions and the work on these SDGs were somehow successful. In the other case, they realized that there can be SDGs pairs that neutralize themselves, or even that you will get trade-offs. That was especially the case when SDGs were combined with SDG 12 and SDG 15. So that was quite amazing, and this has consequences. So to look a bit more deeply into the problem, how to work on SDGs, how to implement them, and how to fulfill them. So that is kind of eye-opener that it's not possible, obviously, to combine every SDGs in a bilateral way or in a trilateral way, so that there's the danger that you will get more trade-offs than synergies. So that some introductory part to the SDGs. And when we look to, and we will hear this also in the presentation, in the presentations. Actually, what we want is we want to achieve sustainable that we use the resources that are available, not only water resources. We have other natural resources that we use them in a sustainable way, and that we conserve them in the context of SDGs. That is what we need for global growth and tackling climate change, of course. You know all these discussions: flooding, droughts, carbon, increase of carbon concentration in the atmosphere, and so on. And what is the current debate? The debate on social well-being and ecological viability. That includes climate protection from the concept of the inclusive development within the SDG framework. So what does it mean? When we look at, I already mentioned this, when we look at the SDG framework, inclusive development is extremely important. We have these two pairs of inclusive system and extractive systems. Maybe we can discuss about that later. From my perspective, this is one of the most important things in order to realize synergies between SDGs from this perspective. The current problem is the achievement of real sustainable development is still hampered by numerous compromises in favor of conservative economic growth or social well-being and environmental sustainability. What we realize worldwide is, of course, a kind of conservative economic growth. So that only in very few aspects, the environmental need, the environmental requirements, that means to preserve and to think about more of the vulnerability of natural resources, is not in the agenda of conservative economic growth. So that is something we have to be aware of, and this must be changed. So the European Union, for example, is on the way to open, or they have already opened the debate on a kind of real Green Deal. My hypothesis is, without a commitment to inclusive development and inclusive political system, the SDGs run the risk not directing the substantive transformation needed to achieve strong, sustainable development in states and global level. So this is one of the, well, let's say, biggest requirements. Okay, the keywords for today will be water governance, sustainable water security. We will talk about SDGs, climate change as well, and we need to discuss what are our session insights and highlights of our meeting today, because we want to report this to the organizing committee so that we can have it in the report. Okay, that's from my side from now. I will now go, let me go back, and I would like to give the floor to Banjiru. I will end my presentation now, and I would like to ask Banjiru to start with your presentation. The floor is yours. Banjiru, are you there? So we have lost her. Okay, coming back to her later, just to save time, I would like to ask Juan Carlos to start with his presentation.
Wanjiru said that she's
there.
here.
Can you speak, please, Wanjiru? She's not able to unmute. Okay, Wanjiru, if you agree, then we will go to the next speaker, and as soon as you are able to unmute your mic and that we can see you, you will be the next. Okay, so Chrispin, let's go ahead with Juan Carlos. Oh, by the way, to the audience, if you have questions to the presenter, please write them down in the chat. Chrispin will read the question or will collect the questions, and that we can answer them later. Okay, Juan Carlos, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to share the screen.
Yeah.
So it is okay there?
Perfect, perfect.
Well, thank you. Good morning from Mexico to everyone. I'm going to present our work about understanding water governance through strategic environmental assessment. There are a couple of, multiple authors here from the Faculty of Civil Engineer of the University of Colima, the Faculty of Law, and the Faculty of Chemical Science from the University of San Luis Potosí. So, as an introduction, well, here in Mexico, the strategic environmental assessment is not used as a planning and decision-making support tool in any level. So we built on the need to make decisions in different way in order to gain the goals of the sustainable development. So we use this approach to perform a research about water supply in the state of San Luis Potosí. We also know that in Mexico, the human right to water, it's in constitutional context, but not operative in secondary laws. And also, we have a lot of water quality issues in drinking water. And with all this, we wanted in this research to find how to improve water quality and water supply in the middle region of San Luis Potosí. So this is Mexico. This is the state of San Luis Potosí, and within San Luis Potosí there are 4 regions: the Altiplano, Centro, the middle region, and the Huasteca. So we work over here. So the background of this research, we perform a research project between 2013 and 2015. Well, I was studying my PhD in the Altiplano region. There were 2 academic institutions, 1 government institution, 3 researchers, 1 PhD student. We visited 15 municipalities and 70 rural communities. Sorry. And the subjects that we researched was about water governance and water quality, but we didn't link it to, in that time, the Millennium Development Goals. Right now, in the current project, it's in the middle region of San Luis Potosí. There are working 3 academic institutions, 8 researchers, 11 undergraduate students, 2 master students. We visited 12 municipalities, plus 7 plus urban and rural communities before the pandemic hits last year. So, and the subjects that we researched was about water governance, water quality, human right to water, underground and surface water modeling, droughts, climate change, and the project is linked to the SDGs also. We use this methodology, this set of stages and steps. This is the proposal for implementing a strategic environmental assessment to planning instruments in Mexico. and the objectives were to identify the elements affecting water quality and water supply in the middle region, and to propose the best alternatives for sustainable water supply and assessing their sustainability in the short, medium, and long term in link with the SDGs. This is the team, part of the team, not all of them. We performed several meetings from 2018 to currently. The project ends in next month, in April, with the final report. And well, when the pandemics close, all the travels and all the face-to-face meetings, well, we use this resource in online to continue developing the project. So this is the methodology that we use, as I was talking about you. This is all the process for developing, in this case, a water management plan for the region, and these were all the steps. Right now, we are working in this part, and it's likely that the third stage is not going to be implemented, but it will be gather a good results. This is the middle region of San Luis Potosí with the 12 each.
Juan, can you hear me? Yes, this is curse and blessing of the new digital world. So he has lost connection. And the others? Where are the others? Chrispin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Then would bandwidth.
Anand is there. Yeah. Banjiru has problems. Yeah. Look, Mohammed, you are there. That's okay. But Banjiru couldn't come back.
Wanjiro has been here, but I don't know. I think just on and off problems, but she is still logged in. Yeah.
Andreas, would you like me to try and see if I can make a presentation?
Yes, Mike, my mic shows a green dot. Okay. Well, I think that to save time, we can come back to Juan as soon as he will have a better connection. Yeah, I'm sorry, but then let's go to Mohammed, the next speaker. If you're able to upload your presentation, Mohammed.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just try to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry that I have a problem with my camera, so I hope that you still uh, can hear me. Okay, my research is on harnessing synergies between climate action and economic development in Sudan. Uh, as you know, Sudan currently is at a crossroads, not only because of the socio-economic and political change that are taking place now in this country after the revolution in 2018 and 2019, but also because this country is highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change, which have resulted into the two extremes, drought and also floods. This requires from us to rethink the economic development pathway because climate change also is affecting and it is also a great threat to the economic development. So we need to include the climate factor also in this new economic development formula. So the ultimate goal is to build a low carbon and climate resilient economy, as mentioned in the Paris Agreement. And this transformation require deep change in the whole systems, the socio-economic systems. And in order to make this deep transformation, there is an opportunity that if we look at the synergies between climate action and economic development, we can find some interesting entry points that can be used to accelerate the achievement of the development goals and also the climate action goals. So identifying these synergies is a key information and need to be addressed. So the challenge that we are addressing here is that we have different plans. We have the National Adaptation Plan, we have the nationally determined contributions from the Paris Agreement on climate change, and we have the Sustainable Development Goals. And all these plans seems to be run in parallel, and also there are many synergies and overlaps between these different plans. So we need to look carefully at these three, especially these three plans, in order to find the synergies that can be harnessed between climate action and also economic development. So I put two simple research questions. The first one is, what are the possible synergies and entry points for aligning climate action with development agenda? We have the SDGs, we have the indices of climate action, and we have the NAB, the National Adaptation Plans. And what are the potential benefits of such alignment? The methodological approach is simple. First, we correlated the SDGs and indices and NAB plans of the country to identify some synergies between the three plans. Then we need to recognize what are the entry points, what are the overlaps, in order to come up with the alignment benefits and propose some alignment targets and funding targets. Because of the time limitation, as I'm presenting an ongoing research in a poster format, I will show you some few initial result of this research. Firstly, you can see in this table, when we looked at the indices and the SDGs of Sudan, we can see many interlinkages. So you can see that Sudan has many indices as climate action, and when you assign this climate action to the different SDGs, you can see that most of the climate actions are related to some SDGs. For example, SDG number 7 on affordable and clean energy. Some of the indices are related to SDG number 2 on no hunger. So here we are bringing the problem of food security, also on reduced inequalities, SDG 10, and also water. And you can see the distribution of the relationship between the climate actions and the different SDGs. So this is just an example when you look at the SDG number 6, and here we are in a conference on water security. So I choose SDG number 6. When we put the plans of Sudan regarding SDG number 6, against the indices, the climate actions, and the national adaptation plan, you can see that there are many actions that are taking place, but there are many similarities. So the three of them are talking about, for instance, irrigated agriculture, rehabilitation of irrigation canals, harvesting programs. So we can take these overlaps as entry points in order to accelerate the implementation of the three plans and to enhance the efficiency and the effectiveness of the three plans. And this is not only the it is not only true for Sudan, but it is also for other countries like the countries of the Nile Basin, and also across the countries. If you look at the indices of the Nile Basin countries that are related to SDG number 6 on water, you can see that there are many overlaps between these countries, and we can actually take these entry points in order to not harnessing only synergies between SDGs and indices, but also to harness also synergies and cooperation between the riparian countries of the Nile, which is a conflicted river basin. When you look at the interlinkages between climate activities and SDGs, this figure comes from the NDC SDG Connections platform. You can see that this is the SDG number 6 and the climate, no, sorry, this is the all the SDGs and the indices that are related to each one of these indices. When we talk about the connections, you can see that there are many co-benefits. If we are talking about the connections, we are talking about research and development, we are talking about resilience, adaptive capacity, we are talking about finance, among other. This is specifically for the SDG number 6 on clean water. So you can see that when we look at the climate actions that are related to SDG number 6 on clean water, you can see that many activities came out. We have resilience, adaptive capacity, community-based development, finance, and I will show you only one benefit of such alignment of the three plans, which is the financing issue. So one of the benefit is that if you are able to align the three plans, actually you are harnessing synergies between them, you are minimizing cost, and also you are attracting more investment. If you look at the different countries of the Nile Basin, you can see in this graph, this is the climate finance in billion US dollars that were received by the Nile countries from the multilateral development banks. For the period between 2015 and 2019, the total received amount is more than 15 billion US dollar, and Egypt has received the majority of this amount. One essential reason is that Egypt is putting a lot of efforts in aligning these plans. Of course, this is not the only reason, but it also can help to attract climate finance and um, uh, minimize the required cost. So the conclusion, there are multiple synergies between climate action and the 2030 development agenda in Sudan and other countries. Investing in aligning the SDGs, NDCs, and NAP plans is crucial to accelerate the fulfillment of the three agendas and also to mobilize the financial resources. And these synergies can play a crucial role in promoting sustainable development while adapting and mitigating climate change, which is the ultimate goal of this transformation. Also, alignment would ensure coherence, efficiency, and effectiveness in the implementation of the plans. The aligning process, we found that it should be a dynamic process, so it should bring some flexibility and learning over time. and there are many enabling factors that should be taken into consideration: institutional arrangement, information sharing, and also, last but not least, capacity development. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Mohammed, for this very nice and informative presentation. Just one word to the audience. If you have any questions and you write them down in the chat, please address the speaker. Don't forget that, to whom you want to ask the question. So I see now Juan Carlos is back. Juan Carlos, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, Andreas.
Can you continue with your presentation?
Yes. Can you tell me where I get it, because I don't know when or the moment where I go out.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead and try to show us your slides. Yes.
I don't know in which one I was.
At the methodology, I guess.
Yes.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the next one which had the map.
This one?
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you. This is, as I was saying, these were the communities that we visited in this region. That gets for the 20% of the state of San Luis Potosí in our project. And we what we wanted to do is to define an initial problem framework where we list the social, economical, cultural, political, legal, institutional, health, and biophysical elements that affects the availability of drinking water, and also the same elements for each one of these dimensions of the environment that were affecting the quality of the drinking water. So this was performed before the field work with all the team that work in the project, and then after the field work, we refine our problem framework, because we noticed that some of the elements weren't there in the communities that we visited, or in the water governance system, and also there were other elements that were new that we didn't think of initially. So with the results, these are the field work that it was performed for the project. We visited each one of the communities. We identified the water sources, and we talk with the responsible for the water distribution within the communities. We talk with authorities from the municipalities also, and after finish the field work, we also gather some meetings with the authorities to present them the results for a project for each one of the municipalities, and also to receive from them feedback about where were, from their perspective, the best alternative to solve the problem of water supply and water quality. At the end, we know that understanding water governance through strategic environmental assessment requires a lot of reliable data, which Mexico doesn't have right now. We need to form inter and transdisciplinary groups to perform such projects or such processes. We know that reliable data is not always found on official data, so field work is a must. A lot of our economical resource and human resource were focused on this field work. And well, using strategic environmental assessment helps to identify the driving forces that is required to take into account for effective planning and decision-making instruments. An important conclusion is that most of the current planning and decision-making instruments are focused on low-impact driving forces within the water governance systems in the region of study. So we are putting more of the available resource, time, money, and human resource in the less effective elements of the water governance system to solve the problem. So even when using the same methodology than in the Altiplano region, particularities from each region were considered in the analysis when using the strategic environmental assessment approach. There are some coincidence, but also significant difference. And only some of the municipalities in the region are linking SDGs, climate change, or water security concepts within their planning and decision-making instruments, and the human right to water and sanitation is not getting accomplished in the middle region of San Luis Potosí because people have to go to different sources are taking a lot of time to bring water to their houses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Juan Carlos. I'm happy that it worked now. Thank you very much for your nice presentation and giving you some insights in the strategic environmental assessment approach in Mexico and that area you were doing the research. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The audience, if you have questions, please write them down in the chat and address the name of the speaker, please. Well, I see Manjuru is back, is with us. So I would like to ask you to start with your presentation. The floor is yours.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah.
Application window. Sorry.
If you cannot do, I can try it for you.
Yes, because I'm on the application window and I cannot see my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Which, sorry, we had tried this earlier and it worked.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
So let me
kindly share it for
share
me.
your slides.
Yes, kindly do.
Now. Wait a minute.
Sorry for that.
So here we are. You can start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the technical hitches. My name is Wanjiru Gishohi. I am a PhD graduate, really. I graduated just a few weeks back from Kenyatta University. I'm a management student, and I've been looking at the sustainability of water supply in Nairobi's informal settlements. So I'm presenting part of my research titled Owners and Beholders, the issue of community agency and how it affects the sustainability of water supply projects in Nairobi informal settlements, or slums, if you would like. Next, please. So just a bit of background. In Kenya, we have about 17 million people who lack access to drinking water, with about 47% of the people in the urban area lacking access to piped water. And this issue is much more pronounced in the slums or informal settlement areas, which have high population densities, as well as other infrastructural and spatial challenges. So as a solution to this crisis, some water sector stakeholders decided to implement some projects in the form of water kiosks or yard taps to help address these issues. These projects are usually communal, and however, there has been an issue with the sustainability of these projects. And in Africa, they register very low sustainability rates. About 53% of them are sustainable, and 25% of them fail within the first 2 years of inauguration. And at any one time, about 30 to 60% of those projects are not working. So that is what really drove the need for this project. And why is it important again? Our National Water Master Plan 2030 projects that the urban population will increase to around 46 million by 2030. And these people will be residing mainly in the informal settlement areas. And our regulatory board, called WSREB, or Water Sector Regulatory Board, also notes that it has very poor structures in providing or addressing water supply in these areas, according to its impact reports. And these challenges, of course, will be compounded by the effects of climatic variability. Next slide, please. So what were the conceptual foundations of my study? I'm a management student, so a lot of it was driven from theories anchored in management. The first one is stakeholder theory, where implementers of a project have a fiduciary relationship with stakeholders, and decisions of project implementers must take care of the interests of all. The four capital models also notes the issue of social capital. Really, projects should be hinged on social capital, which are the networks through which the labor force and the financial capital is organized to deliver some of these economic benefits. I also looked at the local turn, which I borrowed from peace studies, where there has been a change from the top-down approaches to bottom-up approaches in development interventions, so that we recognize the locals as the primary drivers of transformative and sustainable change, especially if you're looking to effect sustainability as a systemic change. Yes. Thank you. We can move on to the next one, please. So, in identifying the local, it's a very heterogeneous space, and when you talk about involve local communities, who are these local communities? So one of the ways I looked at it is by identifying who are the owners, who are the beholders, and the local here for me I took to be the owners, and I gave a few qualifying factors of identifying the owners. These are the people who have lived through water supply challenges. So if we get into the informal settlement space, we ask, who are those people that have lived through these water supply challenges and were impacted in clear ways? They did not have any other option but to live under that environment and the challenges, and were also direct participants or recipients of other identifiable interventions and have been impacted in tangible ways. So when you're going to implement projects in this space, look at who are the owners. Yeah, if they fit any of these categorizations, those are the people you should bring to the table. Otherwise, they become the beholders. Our development assistants, our NGOs, our government, they are who I'm calling the beholders. So in conducting this research, I adopted an explanatory and experimental research approach. It was a cross-sectional survey, really, and I targeted about 741 projects under the purview of the Nairobi Water Company, implemented in the various slums within Nairobi City. I sampled about 260 through stratified random sampling by looking at the various slum villages in the 6 regions of Nairobi Water operations, and I asked, and the respondents were the project leads in those projects. So these are some of the findings that they gave me, or what I found on the ground. We can move on to the next slide, please. So the respondents, of course, reiterated the need for inclusion, and their issue is to be involved in the design phase of the project. So usually they're involved, yes, but at later stages. So when the decisions are being made, when the projects are being designed, when the locations are being identified, many of them are not included. So they ask for a seat at the table as early as the project design phase. And they also mentioned the issue of capacity building, especially where a lot of development assistance is coming in and new technologies, or technologies are imported from abroad. They need to be taught how to handle these technologies on the ground so that they can continue running their projects. There was also an issue of inter-organizational collaboration. So many NGOs, I was looking at government projects like Haarstrick under Nairobi Water. So other NGOs and other organizations are working in this space, doing the same thing, really. So they asked for a lot of collaboration, which is really a form of inclusiveness if you look at it, yeah, in terms of NGOs and other private sector players coming together to avoid duplication and fragmentation of efforts. They also raised another issue of power relations between the local and the global. I mean, the people who are coming in to assist them do not sort of really understand them. There's a lot of friction. They come with preconceived ideas or preconceived notion of what is needed or what would really work. So there are a bit of power relations in decision making and so on between the local and the global. There's also the issue of legitimacy. Really, who is it that can make decisions in this space? And something else that came out in my study is also the composition of the local. We have said that the local is heterogeneous. So if we're bringing these people who have lived through this area, who is it that we are bringing? Looking at the breadth of it, how many are we bringing? And the depth of it. How many, in terms of skills, are we bringing educated people, illiterate people, in terms of abilities, women, youth, persons with disabilities, and so on, to be able to make decisions for them? And so at the end of it, inclusion centers the agency of these people, the community agency that I'm talking about. And it also adds to the debates that we've been having, the epistemological debates on creating space for non-Western centric ideas, recognizing the indigenous ideas, the indigenous solutions about what works for them. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And I understand to be successful and to implement SDGs, it's quite critical to, or important, let's say, to integrate societal groups, to integrate them into the decision making. And I understand that the problems on the ground in the local areas are diverse. And so capacity building is needed, and that all these groups have to be included in the discussion from the beginning. Otherwise, the best SDGs and methodologies will fail if the people are not behind. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's now come to the next presenter. It is on my list, so a little Camille. I would like to ask Guillaume to go ahead. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Professor Andreas, for introducing me. Let me try to share my screen. Okay. Are you seeing my screen, my presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you go to the full screen, just for presentation mode? Yeah.
Okay. So hi everyone, thanks for watching this session. My name is Guilherme Checo. I'm from Brazil, working and representing here the Democracy and Sustainability Institute. And I would like to talk with you about this approach with this title, Sanitation Tariff as a Key Instrument for Water Security. So giving a very deep look at the sanitation tariff. So first of all, just so all you know about Instituto Democracia e Sustentabilidade, where this work about the sanitation tariff was developed. This is a Brazilian social environmental think tank founded in 2009 with the purpose of reflecting on and proposing better public policies based on the convergence between the values of democracy and sustainability. So this work about the sanitation tariff also give this look to access to sanitation and this potential instrument for a better water security scenario. Just a quick panorama about the access to sanitation and comparing the world, huge numbers, and the Brazilian situation. In the world, we have about 2 billion people without access to basic sanitation facilities, such as toilets or latrines. And also we have 673 million people defecating in the open, using the World Health Organization numbers. And on the other side, in Brazil, we also have 39 million people without access to fresh water, and about half of the population here in Brazil without access to sanitation services. So this is our quick panorama about the Brazilian access to sanitation. So you all can see that we have a huge problem, even being one of the 10th biggest economies in the world. We have a huge problem here when we look at the access to sanitation numbers. So here on IDS, on Democracy and Sustainability Institute, we started to look on what money, what investments do we have in this sector here in Brazil. And when we see this graphic, you all can see that tariff here in the yellow part is by far the biggest source of investments in water and sanitation here in Brazil, with 81% of all of our investments. Federal government money represents only 15%. State money here in Brazil only 3%, and municipalities and cities investments only 2% of all of our investments here. We are using all official numbers, considering this time from 2000 and 2019. So we can see that tariff is a very important source of instruments. So in our view, a very important or potential instrument for a better and water security scenario. But nonetheless, with such a huge access gap, as we all see in Brazil, tariff could be an instrument to achieve the universalization. And this, we are considering this understanding that access to water and sanitation are two human rights, as the General Assembly of the United Nations recognized in 2010 and also in 2015. And also considering that water is a finite resource. And specifically in Brazil, water, fresh water is always the public good. So here we have our Brazilian contradiction. We have 12% of the world's fresh water, so the biggest water amount in any country, but nonetheless, we have a huge access gap to sanitation and water. So these two human rights are not being considered and defended here in Brazil. So in Brazil, the tariff definition is a regulation competence. We have a regulatory agency that defines the tariff. So our conclusion here is that regulation and tariff definition could generate incentives so that sanitation companies could always try to act in benefit of public interests, such as the sanitation universalization, human rights. Our session title here, the 2030 agenda, and all the SDGs, specifically the sixth one, to guarantee physical and financial accessibility. So here to conclude, this was our work on Democracy and Sustainability Institute. We made 23 proposals for the enhancement of Sabesp's tariff. Sabesp is the biggest sanitation facility here in Latin America. It provides services in 370 cities in the state of São Paulo. And just in the last year, this number is wrong. So in the last year of 2019, it had 19 billion reais of gross revenue. So here I just put some of our 23 proposals. The first one, to guarantee financial access to all the extreme poor and poor families, to have a fair collection with the real values of each of the services of water and sanitation, to have full transparency, so all subsidies and key information are at the bill, so each one of our users can know exactly what he is paying, to encourage providers' efficiency and enhance the rational use, and also to generate financial resource for a structured watershed protection program, such as we have in Costa Rica, in Peru, and other countries. So that's what I would like to present to you, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Guillaume, for this interesting insight into, let's speak water management in Brazil. And as far as we could understand is that sanitation, access to good sanitation is still the big problem, and that my tariffs might help to solve the problems, but there is still a gap. You have a lot of water available, but the access is is still crucial, right? Okay, now thank you very much. I would like, last but not least, dear Anand, it's up to you to give us your presentation. And well, we are waiting, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Andreas. Thanks everyone for your time. I'll just try and share my screen right away.
Yep.
Can you see that?
Not yet. Yes.
All right, fantastic. So I'll be talking today about the topic of inclusive development and how that might be influenced quite a lot by top-down approaches, using the story of the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Botswana is a southern African country. The Okavango Delta is considered by many to be one of the last relatively untouched ecological systems on the planet. And it's fascinating that Botswana, which achieved independence around the same time as Mr. Gareth Hardin was proposing the tragedy of commons and the wave of acknowledgement that his proposition attained globally, and how that influenced Botswana as well. Because in my secondary research of literature between the period of 1992 to our current time, 1992, because that's when the Rio Declaration was made, perhaps bringing participation to the forefront of our minds, or at least drawing relatively more attention to the idea of participation and gender equality. So I will not waste too much of your time on this particular slide, because I think that is definitely something that has been spoken about quite extensively during this conference, is about the centrality of SDG 6 in attaining other SDGs, or the influence of water and sanitation on other aspects of life on the planet, including poverty, hunger, health, life on land, and life below water. The Okavango Delta itself is a wetland system, an endorheic wetland system, because it drains into the desert in Botswana. The key concepts that I kind of drew from my study of the literature is how knowledge tends to flow from the international scale to regional and transboundary systems, and down towards national and local subsystems from there onwards. This is especially true in the case of Botswana and the Okavango Delta, because I believe, like I said already, the collision of the country's independence in the late 60s and the emergence of Hardin's tragedy of commons and its wide acceptance globally led, I believe, also to a wave of institutional approaches that determined change in Botswana. Just briefly, so in 1994, Botswana, Namibia, and Angola, the three riparian states of the Okavango River Basin, established OCOCOM, which is the river basin organization meant to serve as technical advisors to the three governments in governing the resources of the Okavango River Basin, not just the delta. And then in 1997, the UN Watercourses Convention came in, and I'll show that flow to you and how it impacted Botswana and the delta in particular. And therefore, I'm using the idea of scales and legal pluralism because these tend to work in a very enmeshed manner, connecting with one another intentionally or unintentionally, but they do tend to connect, and knowledge tends to flow across scales. And legal pluralism could sometimes be adapted in manners in which perhaps the scholars hadn't imagined it to be, primarily from the point of view of the bottom tier of the people that we're trying to seek to serve. Particularly within the Okavango Delta and Botswana, if you see the progressive evolution of water policy, like I said, in '94 the OCOCOM came into existence. '97 the UN Watercourses Convention came into existence, and it had a direct impact. And this is established in several scholarly studies. You could look up Lars Ramberg, for example, directly influencing the SADC water protocol, which was revised in 2000, to essentially draw in the knowledge that was kind of presented to the world at large through the Watercourses Convention. Subsequently, in 2007, the OCOCOM established an OCOCOM secretariat. The OCOCOM started to receive substantive funding from Europe, from Sweden, the UK, also from UNDP, and that led to two important studies that were instituted. One was a transboundary diagnostic analysis, which aimed to study the hydrological, ecological resources of the delta, and which then was translated into a strategic action program, which was then translated into a national action plan by all the three countries. In my case, I'm focused on Botswana. And then the national action plan, which grew from the TDA and the SAP, had a significant influence in defining the very young water policy that was put in place in 2012 by Botswana, which now governs national water provisions and access to water and all of that. And it serves as the guiding document for local government, right? Now, I also want to then think about how much of that could have come without actually being plural, because as you can observe from studies or the work done by scholars such as Claudia Paul-Wostel, particularly in the area of water governance and transboundary water governance. Claudia and of course the scholars have sought to kind of draw a distinction between public participation and stakeholder participation. And I use this because I want to explain what might have happened in the case of Botswana as well, is public participation being defined as something, a process or an interaction that is sought to inform or provide awareness for the people concerned and people that are going to be impacted by policy, versus stakeholder participation, where scholars consider that it's far more organized, far more through formal arrangements of organized public participation through civic society bodies, NGOs, or even government-placed institutions which are built perhaps to encourage participation, where there is far more opportunity for inputs into planning and decision-making. I leave you with this thought because my work was an essay and I did not want to draw too much from it, but I believe that there's ample evidence and reason for curiosity, for being curious about how we could perhaps, turn this entire process on its head, and perhaps explore for ways to develop policy and policy input with greater and more meaningful participation of community members, because often the top-down approach comes at the expense of traditional knowledge and customs, which seem to have a very strong relationship with water, not only in Africa, but throughout various geographies around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anand, for this very interesting presentation. And it brings in good aspects that when we discuss about SDGs and how to realize SDGs and how to make them successful, transboundary problems and the dialogue between the countries, but also when we go down to local rural level, that is also very important in order to have a flow of information and that nothing is missing. So that was also the question of Chrispin he was asking, and I would like to give the floor to Chrispin to handle all these questions. It might be he can, and I invite the audience to ask questions as well, to write down them in the chat. And yeah, Chrispin, please, the floor is yours, and you can handle the questions.
Okay, thank you, Andreas. Unfortunately, I don't see many questions on the chat, but we can populate the chat as we move along.
Yeah.
So I have a personal question to Mohammed, the one who presented some things from Sudan.
Yes.
Yeah, Mohammed, this is Chrispin from Kenya. We are neighbors, and we share the Nile Basin problems and hopes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, what you had the aligning of these things with the local development plans. What of our AU? Did you try to match it with those development, the SDGs, and see the synergies and all that?
Yeah, thank you very much for the very interesting question. Also from Louis, I think it's an important question. Why? Because we are talking about different plans and different agendas. But all of these agendas, as you saw in the presentation, have synergies between them. I put only the overarching global agendas, the SDGs, the NDCs, and the national adaptation plans. And when you look at the three, you can see that there are many synergies that can be used at least to maximize the benefit and also reduce the needed cost of the implementation of these different plans. The African Union agenda or vision for 2063, I totally believe that it is not different, because they are talking about the same things. They are talking about the transformation of economies, the adaptation and mitigation to climate change, and also reduce inequalities. So all these aspects that are included in the global agendas are reflected also in the national and also the regional plans. So I think if we address some of these synergies, we might also fulfill some of the goals in the regional and the global agendas. I hope that answers your question.
Sure. That's mine.
Yes.
I don't see to Mohammed any other person. Can I ask you another one, Mohammed?
Yes, of course.
In the course of implementing these plans, what is your experience from this study? we know that rarely do we achieve 100% target. So if there's a lot of synergy in this, does it mean that if one fails somewhere, then the ripple effect will come down, or that failure will basically trickle failure across the board, across all the plans? Supposing, let's say, the SDG 6 fails in Africa, we don't really achieve it.
Yes.
Does it also imply that the small plans that we have, national targets, like let's say the Kenya, we also have some visions, Sudan also has its visions. What is the relationship between this?
Yes,
If you may think.
very interesting and challenging question. But let me say that when you look at the different plans, the different SDGs, for example, you can see the different interlinkages between them, the different synergies, the different trade-offs, as mentioned by Professor Haarstrick.
Yeah.
When you look at these synergies, you can find opportunities. So if you, for example, acting in one of these SDGs, you might find some potential synergies that can affect the other SDG, and the opposite also is true. For example, you are focusing on food security, SDG number 2, no hunger, and you would like to expand the croplands. Expanding croplands horizontally means that you might need to clear some of the important natural vegetation, for example, forest, which are very important for from a climate mitigation point of view. So you are fulfilling one of the SDGs regarding food security, but in turn you are also inducing other challenges from other SDGs, and sometimes they are interlinked. If you look at this example of climate change, you are triggering multiple challenges to different sectors. As you know, climate change is not only a one-directional threat, but it also involves different challenge to different sectors. So you achieve from one sector, from one SDG achievement to that food security part, but at the same time you induce different challenge of climate change that affects water, affects economy, affects infrastructure, affects everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other question.
No other question.
Andreas? Yeah. Okay. I see question to Sheko. What can be done differently to better utilize the local water resources available and bringing them to the people? Sheko, you get it. It is on the chat.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chrispin and Tesnen for the question. At least here in Brazil, we are majorly all the utilities and some public policies. We are investing a lot in a not rational strategy. That is, in the biggest cities such as São Paulo, where I am, we have about 20 million people in our metropolitan region. The strategy is to bring water far away. That's not a sustainable or rational strategy. So if I could answer the question of how to better utilize the local water, I would say is to invest much more in sanitation. So we can care about our local water and not use this strategy to bring water from far away. And this would be a very important pathway to a better water security scenario. And also, these have a relationship with the tariff development. that I explored here in my presentation, because the regulatory incentives is always so that utilities invest more in water supply and not invest a lot in water management and investments on sanitation. So I would explore that question in that way. I don't know if in the other countries that we have here and the other examples, this is the same strategy being developed.
Okay. I don't know. Chair, how are we doing in terms of time? We are still okay?
Yeah, we still have a bit time. There's a virtual marketplace for posters right now, but we have then the break, so we still have time till 2:20. So that means 1 hour of talking.
Okay.
But we don't want to expand that. Yes, Verena tells me or tells us we are actually 20 minutes over the time. If you allow me, Verena, one last question to Banjiru, if she is still there. Okay, she said sure. Okay, so we can discuss. If you're not hungry, you want to have a break, we can go ahead until eternity.
Now, when Jiru is back.
Yeah, Banjiru,
yes, I am here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am here.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, okay. Just a question or comment. You mentioned in your findings and conclusion that for the, so to speak, African way to solve SDG problems and to be successful in that way, that more societal groups, that also means indigenous groups, people in the rural area have to be included in the whole decision making, and that you propagating more space for non-Western centric knowledge. This is very important. Chrispin, you might remember once we had a meeting in Botswana where colleagues from many universities and also from policy discussed a kind of African way how to tackle the capacity building, how to improve knowledge and education, but also how to improve the African network in order to bring ahead the economy. One step I've heard is now that you have built up a kind of African community, like the European community, where no customs are now have to be paid. So you have built a big economic room. So, Banjiru, I fully support this non-Western centric approach. But let me know, how would you like to see the integration of these societal groups in order to fill this gap and to have a better flow of information from science, from the academic, down to how you call it, to the grassroots, in order to solve the problems which are in some areas in Africa are very crucial in local areas. How to manage this and how to bring in the African way, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, Professor Andreas. The issue of integration of society groups, I brought this because when we talk about stakeholder participation, even as Anand has presented, we do not look at the breadth and the depth. That is one of the things that I added to the presentation, which I did not send you. The breadth is the number of people who are coming. If we go to Mathare, I was looking at urban slums, really not the rural areas. So if we go to those slums, how many people are we having? So if we say we're having 50 people, what kind of people are we bringing to that table to participate in the decision making? Are we including women? Are we including persons with disabilities? Are we including the youth and other marginalized groups? probably that are represented in that space. So one of the ways to integrate these groups is through now the communication and the awareness. Sometimes when we get into those areas, people don't even know they're supposed to make these decisions. They think that it is the responsibility of whoever will come to that space. One, they do not know, because first, as the Water Regulatory Board in Kenya admits in their impact reports from 2018 up to 2020, is that they have failed in terms of their pro-poor strategies. So these poor people do not know first they're supposed to be in those spaces, to be engaged, to be consulted. So the issue of awareness, and that's one of the things that they have really been trying. The issue of human-centered approaches, go to the ground, ask these people. So for me, the first step is to tell them, we need your opinion, we value your opinion. How do you exist in this space? And really, how can our knowledges or our systems ride on what is currently existing in your space?
Yeah, thank you very much. And in my perspective, this is very, very important. You can have success and you can have progress if you allow an open and free discussion. So if you allow pluralism, the more ideas, the more people you will get on board who have ideas, will discuss, and so on, then you will make a progress. And I think that is very, very important. Also to hear the people who are very, very near to the problems, especially when we look into Africa in rural areas. But this is also true for other countries, of course. And I don't know, Chrispin, if we have no other questions, then I would like to ask to the audience and to the speakers. We have this discussion about science policy dialogue, and why we do discuss this, because there are some problems, of course, and we have talked about the links between policymakers and academics. Sometimes they don't speak the same language, so there is kind of lack of information flow. What do you think? How can we fill this gap in order to bring these groups together, that we have more success in practical solutions? Because no one is helped. And we will get no progress if the scientists have good solutions and methodologies in their pockets, and there is a lack of information and transformation to decision makers. In some areas it works, but obviously in most of the countries around the world, something is the motor, the engine is not running in a kind of dynamic way. Sometimes it's jumping, but it brings no progress. What is it? What do we have to do in order to improve these gaps, to fill these gaps, and to have a fruitful dialogue between these two groups? Is it a problem with the scientists, or is it a problem with the politicians and the stakeholders? Do we need another language to get on the same, to meet at the same table in order to understand each other? Yeah, Manjuru.
I think, I don't know, should I call it Professor Chrispin or Dr. Chrispin, brought up a very serious issue of translation. And currently I'm working on a policy brief for my thesis. And one of the things that I got from Nairobi Water Company here is that translate it to a language that we can understand. Give us things that are practical, because sometimes in Kenya, academics get caught up in their silos, really, with their theories and very conc methodologies, that when you give to someone who's practically or practicing on the ground, they're not able to implement or get clear headways of really what you're talking about in terms of solution. So really, I think for academics, one is first package your work in ways that can be understood by your audiences, specific audiences. Have something that communicates to academics, also have something that communicates to policymakers and practitioners and even lay people really on the ground. So that's one thing. But for a country like Kenya, there's one time I attended a sanitation conference, and we asked them, why don't you work with universities to give solutions for some of these challenges that you're facing? And they told us, your researches take too long. You know, a master's student will take 4 years, 5 years before completing. So if they're working on an area that is a priority, that is pressing, really our hands are tied. We'd rather go with other people. So sometimes systemic barriers as well. Here, PhDs, masters, postgraduate studies take so long. So there's the issue of language, but also we need to address systemic issues.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's a good aspect where the stakeholders think, okay, research takes too long, but in most cases, science could answer some questions. We have many methodology available, and it's just the advice that comes from science that is there, how to use these solutions and these methodologies in a practice-oriented way. We have it, especially in water, to get clean water, to improve infrastructures. There is experience available. So, but it's a problem for me why this is not possible to bring this to some politicians. There's one comment from Tasnaim. He says it's a problem with bureaucracy and an issue of scale. Government seems to be concerned with a huge picture. Okay, and then we can add, and they want to win the next elections. So that is. So I think when you come up with a good plan that helps the whole nations, and those politicians are involved who say, okay, I will help you, then they will do it also with the background next elections. So that is very simple. Okay, any questions? Oh yeah, Mohammed says, besides there is a need platform for communication. Okay. And for sustained communication, not to have a meeting in a decade, but there must be a regular meeting and to build a regular platform where all these groups can meet, stakeholders, scientists, and also some other societal groups. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, comments from speaker's side? We would like to message and to say solution.
I would just like to thank you, everyone. Thanks, Professor Andreas, Chrispin, all of our colleagues. It was a good session and debate.
Okay. Yes. So I will follow you. Thanks a lot to the speakers for their very interesting presentations. And I hope you will have the opportunity to follow the conference. Thank you very much for your input, for your discussion. Thanks to Chrispin, and maybe we have some inspirations for our book on traditional and modern ways of sustainable water management in Africa. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I would invite Wanjiru.
Yeah.
Wanjiru, let's get in touch. There's a book we are writing up.
Yes. I'm very interested in that.
Okay.
I will get in touch with you. I've added you to my contacts.
Yeah, of course. You should do that. It's very important. Okay, thank you very much, and enjoy the day.